the person who had died is at this kitchen table, and there was a burger there, and they kind of walk in and they look real suave, like, you know, like, oh, like beat cops. Like we're talking like almost like Dick Tracy-esque, right?
Yeah.
Just, and the guys did with the way you did the lighting and the music and all that. And you look at it and like, you know, that's must be his burger. And KRIS reaches down and grabs a burger, takes a bite of it, but he's doing it to like test it. And he's like, yeah, that's beef. But he's like he's doing investigative work, and it cuts to Jack. He's like, what are you doing?
Welcome back to the show. There's no telling where we'll go. So come and share a laugh on the Imp and Skizz podcast.
We're back, installment number 2, back with Zed. Now, in between the show, I do want to talk about one really quick little nuance, and then we're going to move on. That I was just, we just talked for a second, and it blew my mind. We touched on the fact that we're very, very similar people. You brought up the fact that you're the youngest of 3, and I was like, you must be joking, and I didn't talk about it, but in between the episodes, well, I'm the youngest of 3. And I was curious. I said, tell me their ages. And you told me their ages. And I'm like, you must be joking. And it's like one of them is the same, and the other one is 1 year off. It's like,
there's a formula.
That's what I was going to say.
Here's how you produce funny people.
Here's how you make the world's greatest people.
Unique and funny people. You make sure they're the third child with a big gap between the first two.
Yes, that's what it is.
And they're bound to be funny. You know what? I'd love to hear from the viewers, the listeners, like in the comments, if you're in a situation where like you're in a family with 3 and you had that gap between 1 and 2, and then there's a third youngest, are they funny and unique compared to the rest? I mean, like maybe we're onto something.
Dude, I'm telling you.
You think we've stumbled upon like a trick to life?
Dude, I know it may sound crazy, and you and I actually, I was going to recommend this as a future podcast. There's a book called Outliers, and it's quite literally studying these things that happen in the real world. It takes generations for things to happen before people are like, whoa. And you're right. And there might be something there, but that's, digress. I almost said something really stupid. Let's get into installment number 2, back with Zed. And let's dive right into another huge part of your life, which is something this is a huge topic for me. I love KRIS and Jack. I love this other channel you got going on. Tell me about, how did KRIS and Jack, that channel, come to be? And then we're gonna dive into the podcast, all sorts of things. I got all sorts of stuff to talk about. Go.
Yeah, KRIS and Jack, like I love it too. I can totally see it as its own separate thing, because it's just a combination of both of our script, our writing, our planning, the way we edit to get, like it's such a sort of conglomeration. Am I making words up now? Maybe, I'm not sure.
It works.
A mixture of the both of us that I can enjoy it for what it is. So I will say from the get-go, KRIS and Jack videos are not coming back. It's just the podcast for now. Unfortunately, like the videos we made, they take a lot, and I'm talking like a full 50-60 hour week for both of us to just make one of those videos. Which we just can't do. We just can't do anymore. Luckily back then, Jack didn't have a job, so he was kind of treating it as his job, so he was able to put a lot of time in. But yeah, we both have full-time jobs going on now. So unfortunately, the videos will not be coming back for the foreseeable future. But yeah, they're always great to look back on. We touched before on how maybe I don't often go back and watch old things, but KRIS and Jack videos, I go back and watch often. Yeah. And I enjoy them now just as much as I did back then. So your question was, how did it come about?
How did that channel come about? Tell me about you and Jack. Like, how were you guys,
specifically, like, I feel like you and Jack have a chemistry between the two of you that I think, like Skizz Night, I kind of feel like it's very similar to Skizz Night, where like ours was cultivated over 20 plus years of knowing each other, and like literally like always working jobs together, and we were able to develop that, and it took us a long time. Did you have a similar situation with Jack where you like grew up together or something? Because you guys have that exact same kind of flow and vibe that you guys are just like perfect for each other.
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other for about 20 years now. We met in school. We were both in film studies class, and pretty much everyone that takes film studies pretty much takes it because it's like a DOS subject, right? You can just like, sit and watch films. Hey, that's nice and easy. Yeah. But Jack and I were like the only two. Well, I wouldn't say the only two, but we were the minority that were kind of actually like, I want to learn about how to make movies and how like the movies make people feel and you know, all the stuff like that. Clearly, I didn't do very well. I don't even know what it's about. But yeah, and back then, I didn't want to just learn the theory of it. I wanted to make movies. That's what I grew up thinking I wanted to do: be a filmmaker, be a director, be an editor. I wasn't entirely sure how specific I wanted to be, but so even back then, it was all just theory that we had to do. But I wanted to go ahead and actually start making short films as well. And I didn't want to do it alone. I mean, it's hard enough to kind of, you know, film something, but when you've got to hold the camera at yourself and you can't move it, and it's very restricting, just being a one man band making a film. But yeah, and I saw that Jack was also quite interested in the lesson itself. He was the only one looking at the teacher, watching instead of just sitting there on his phone like everybody else. So I approached him and said, do you want to make a zombie movie with me? Which was my idea at the time. And yeah, he was up for it, and the rest is history. Honestly, we stayed as kind of more colleagues than we did friends at the beginning of our kind of knowing each other, because it was just purely the filmmaking stuff. Like that's all we did. We didn't really hang out outside of that. It was like like a job, like a hobby. It was our joint hobby together. And it stayed like that for a little while. It was only after a year or so that we were kind of like, do you want to just like hang out for once? Like
and not work.
Not make a film.
Like,
yeah.
Just act like we're friends, actually.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we got on so well. We had such a laugh, and we realized we had a similar sense of humor, and we bounced off each other well, and our chemistry just clicked. And yeah, over the 20 years, I guess that chemistry regrew. We learned to kind of play off each other even more, and knew when one of us was going to speak and when one of us wasn't, and they needed to fill in, and so and so forth. And yeah, it's that's what Chris and Jack, the channel, was meant to be. It was meant to try and kind of boil that down, boil our friendship down almost into something that hopefully other people could enjoy. But again, we were kind of just doing it for us, really. And yeah, we made some really good stuff back in the day.
They're so good. You know what I mean? Those videos are so good. I kind of like these. We got two different topics here. I really want to talk about the podcast, but before we do, let's make a pit stop here and really dive into those videos that you guys are making. So if you do a little bit of research, what's considered good according to YouTube from a good ratio, meaning subscribers to viewers, is about 13%. So just to make it real quick, if you have 100 subscribers, you can plan on about 13 people watching your videos. Yeah. That channel has, I believe, over 14,000 subscribers. Those videos are hovering around 40,000 views, 50,000 views. Like it's some of them, some of them are up there, and it's like the ratio is unreal, and for good reason. When I watch those videos, there's so much going on in those. And just for the record, I'm not trying to talk you guys back into it. I'm just saying, I'm just giving you like as one of your fans, I'm giving you like my optics on how I feel about those videos. And I've written to you privately, you and Jack. I said, relay this to Jack. Yeah. Those videos are no joke. And ready for shock? Are you ready for a big old shock? I also went to school for film. So here we are back at that again. Back before I shifted, because I was going to be a young dad, I was going to school for film for a while because I wanted to be an actor or a director or an editor. It was all the same stuff. And I know what it takes to put those things together, because I had to do a lot of stuff like that for my classes and stuff. Now, watching those videos, there's a lot of different things going on. The story is good. The writing is good. The acting is good. The editing is good. Like everything about it was so good. I'm like, these aren't a couple cats just screwing around. This is high quality stuff, to the point where I'm like, how long is it taking them to make these? These are a very big deal.
He said, too long, 50 hours. And they both had other stuff they have to get to, right? Yeah,
they're so good. I even did a reaction on one of your videos. I don't know if you remember that. I did a reaction video because I was kind of in this world. I was like, I kind of want to react to videos. I just give it a go. And I chose, it was... I don't remember which video it was. I just know that there was a part where one of you was going to had to do a stunt of jumping over a big fence. It was a big deal. It was like this intense moment. And so they just took like a doll. They purposely wanted it to look bad, right? And because that was the dichotomy of the moment and then the humor. And they just tossed the doll over it, and I just couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, these guys are amazing. It was so amazing. So I guess I'll say, I'm glad that you're saying foreseeable future because you're not completely closing the door. You have no idea what tomorrow holds.
We would love to do it. Trust me. If we were given the right circumstances, we would both do it again in an instant. We loved it. But yeah, it's just tough, just difficult to justify that length of time being put into something when we gotta live.
You gotta continue being Zedaph, which reminds me, like we kind of glossed over the fact that you are the KRIS in Kris and Jack.
Oh,
like we didn't even talk about. We're just like, hey, Kris, how you doing?
Yeah, yeah. That's
just in case it wasn't obvious.
It's two people, Kris and Jack, and this is Kris.
This
Welcome,
is
Kris.
It actually, I didn't think about it until too late, but like it would have been cool to have Jack somehow also kind of join you for this segment, but we didn't have time to plan that properly. So maybe someday we'll invite you guys back together. You know what I mean?
That sounds good. I'm sure he'd love to, be a part of it too.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Walk me through the writing process. So here's why I asked, right? Because we do we talked about our animations that we did, the Minecraft animations, right? So I predominantly write the bulk of that, and then we kind of massage it together, right? But I write the bulk of that, and it's been he's just such an amazing partner when it comes to the creation of it, because I put him on the spot for some really uncomfortable stuff, and he does get uncomfortable. He's not as comfortable in his skin as I am, right? But he just takes it toe to toe. If this is what you want me to do, this is what I'll do. He does it on this podcast too. We've had some cold openings where it's like really uncomfortable for him.
He stuck a trophy up my nose.
I did. And you know what? And it got the desired effect. If you look at the comments on that video, that cold opening just, it hits, right? So like when it comes to that, he like, trust me, does it. What is the writing process like for Kris and Jack in specifically the videos? I'm chomping at the bit to talk about the podcast, but specifically those videos you guys did, what does that look like from a writing standpoint?
Yeah, so I mean, there were kind of two types of videos we used to do. Like there were the scripted, fully scripted sketches. They were a lot shorter. They were completely like written out exactly word for word what we were going to do. And those would be pretty much written by one of us, or at least like the first 2/3 of it. The sort of the real kind of bite of the sketch would be written by one of us, and then we would sort of read that alongside the other person. We would kind of each read our own lines, and we would just slowly, like you say, massage it into the final product. And that's probably the best way of doing it, because you then get one of you is the kind of audience that doesn't know what's coming yet. So you get a good first reaction of whether things are funny, whether things work, whether things are confusing. So that's really nice to have, because quite quickly, once you both know what's going on, it's very hard to not get lost in, is this good? Are we even doing what we set out to do anymore? You kind of lose track. So that first initial thing is very key. But I'd like to think that everything we did had a pretty equal hand from both of us. We were quite good at either agreeing or we would compromise a lot. In fact, sometimes we even would write each other IOUs of like, okay, we'll do this, but you get an IOU of like, next time you want an idea, you can veto it. Right? And like it wasn't too much of that, but there was a couple of bits where we did that too. And but then the other type of videos that we made were not scripted. They were much more. They were kind of us. They were still a little bit hyper reality almost. We were still kind of acting up for the cameras and playing a little bit dumb and whatnot here and there. But ultimately, it was more like a documentary or something, I guess you could say. When we were the video you mentioned earlier is we were trying to learn how to become stuntmen. That was what the kind of the goal of the episode was, which is obviously ridiculous. And the whole way through, we're kind of just showing how pathetic we are at even slightly being stuntmen. And it culminates in us building a stunt dummy. I think we called Paddy at the time because he was padded. He was just made of pads. And then we realized the humor is in how badly we did it. So we just made the whole end little film. We always kind of did the lead up of like the preparation, how it was all working, and then at the end we'd do like a little kind of experiment test film, like really, really short little film to kind of see if we learned what we learned. And that one was just a purposely terrible. It's one of my favorite things right now. Like seeing like Jack running along and then it just cuts and there's this dummy like flopping over. Even now I've got the memory of it. Like I'll have to watch it after we're done here. But so those videos as well were brilliant because although they weren't like written, we were kind of writing them as we were going. We were acting in character half, but as us half, and in that process of finding out where the video went next was quite organic as well. So in terms of your question of how much it was going, it was always 50-50. Me and Jack, it was the perfect combination of the two of our minds.
The yin yang, they have a similar energy. And it was they have a video called Bad Cop Worst Cop, and it is
This is one of my favorites. Yeah.
Funny. Like I'm in tears watching this. And I remember my favorite part is, so the setting is there's a dead body and these two cops, and it's bad cop, worst cop. And there's a dead body, and it's a crime scene. And the person who had died is at this kitchen table, and there was a burger there. And they kind of walk in, and they look real suave, like, you know, like beat cops. Like we're talking like almost like Dick Tracy-esque, right?
Yeah.
And the guys did with the way you did the lighting and the music and all that. And you look at it and like, you know, must be his burger. And Chris reaches down and grabs a burger and takes a bite of it, but he's doing it to like test it. And he's like, yeah, that's beef. But he's like he's doing investigative work, and it cuts to Jack. He's like, what are you doing? Like, you're actually eating evidence, you know? And I just remember being like, this is just so good because of all the different angles, how and the way they play off each other it was just such a delight. But like I said, having to hang it up, if only for a while, it makes sense, because those were full blown productions that you guys were putting together. Those were no joke.
We did it for a year and a half, and I'm not 100% sure, but we pretty much did a video every week, give or take. There was a few times we kind of missed that, but we made a lot of videos, and there's a lot of good stuff to go back and watch. There's a real treasure trove of fun, interesting, weird videos there that I'm really glad we were able to do a year and a half's worth of. So yeah, even if there are no more in the future, we had a good run, and there's, you know, the videos will always be there, and Paddy will always be there making me laugh, flopping over the fence.
They're always going to be your babies that you can go back to.
It is. I mean, it is crazy to think like, okay, the production value, the quality that you guys did, from everything, like the cinematography, the lighting, all the audio, like it really felt like a full scale production, like you had a full team, and it was just you two putting in 50-60 hours a week. And at the same time, you know, the channel is new and it's growing, you know, probably with that kind of quality. I can't imagine that you were as happy, even though you got to 14,000, did you say?
Yeah.
No.
It was one of those things where it's like, as an outsider looking in, I was frustrated for you, because I know that channel should have been blowing up on YouTube.
Yep.
Should have been over 1 million subscribers within a couple months. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. YouTube didn't push you guys like it should have. It didn't understand. It's like the algorithm didn't understand the value of your content. Did that kind of come into play in the decision making? I know this is a tough question. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but did that kind of come into play in the decision to hang it up at the end of the day, at least that style?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the main reason was Jack was going to go traveling for quite a long time. He was going to go to Australia for a year. So we knew we had to give it up. Otherwise, we were going to have to do all our sketches like we're doing now over video call, which wouldn't have worked the whole way. But so we knew we were going to definitely have a break. But 100%, we were kind of hoping that the channel would kick off and be a big enough thing that it would be able to support both of us working on it as a full-time thing. You know, we're very proud of what it did, and to get up to, you know, even 1,000 subscribers is an incredible achievement. So passing 10,000 even is fantastic. But yeah, it still wasn't enough by far, unfortunately, from a job point of view. Which you know, you got to look at it like that. You got to still be able to, like you say, live your life and survive and be able to earn a living. If we won the lottery, I'm pretty sure Chris and Jack would come back. Or if there's any billionaires out there watching that want to throw us a couple of million, I mean, yeah, Chris and Jack can come back for a couple of million, definitely.
One other thing, you know, and you know, maybe grasping at straws here, but like, it is timeless content, like we said. Like it's still something you can go back to today and enjoy just as much as you did, 3-4 years ago when you guys were making it. And you never know. I mean, it's sitting there right now on your channel, and who knows? YouTube might be like, oh, wait a minute, we meant to push this out to the sub feeds and to the recommended. We just forgot. Here you go. And then boom, maybe it'll take off, and you guys get another chance to start swinging for the fences again, because it was fantastic content. I remember constantly being blown away not only by the quality but by like the things that you guys did extra, to where you started doing like visual effects. I think you had one where you were doing like wands, right? Like you had your magical wands, and it was the first time I saw like you guys dabble in the visual effects. Maybe you had before and I just missed those, but I remember being like, how? Yeah. Like where did they develop that skill set all of a sudden? Now they're also doing visual effects that you would expect a studio to be doing. Right. Like, what's happening here?
I'll say that was all Jack. Oh, he was very much into learning about After Effects and how to make all these kind of visual effects and stuff. So yeah, that was all him. It was incredible that opened up this new realm of being able to do slightly more fantasy-based things, or just unreal, unbelievable things that we were able to do now. So that was always fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's funny because as complicated as Adobe Premiere is, like we've all gotten very good at it over the years. After Effects that's a deep beast. That's a deep beast. And I've played with After Effects. I think we all have, but I've played with it in a very limited capacity, to the point to where I had to do it for my actual job. I had to make a promotional video at this place I work, and I wanted to emphasize one of the products in the video by putting like words over it, the name of what the product was, but I wanted it to move with the actual product, right? So I didn't want to animate it. Tracking, like I anchored it to so I remember when I went and did the filming, I was like, I have no idea how to do this, but I know I'm going to want an anchor point on this. And I took a little piece of red tape and I put it on. I'm like, that's what I'll use. And I used it to anchor to that little red tape. And it was, and anybody who watched the video was like, whoa, that was pretty cool. You know what I mean? And I was like, dude, if I really leaned into After Effects, there's a lot of damage you can do in that. So when I watch your guys' videos and I'm watching some of the effects that are going on, and I remember I had asked you, I knew it was Jack because you and I had this talk before. I'm like, yeah, this dude's got real talent. Like he's very, very talented when it comes to that world. And so to watch him be able to do the After Effects, and I guess, did he do the editing as well?
He would usually be the sort of sat there he would be the pilot of the edit, and I would just be sat over by his shoulder, kind of almost dictating what bits to do and stuff. But he was the one doing all the he was really good at key binds and everything. He was a beast. He could just whiz through it. So I was more from the creative edit side of things, and he was much more getting it done and really paving the way.
And then as the videos progressed, like video after video after video, I was watching Jack's acting just get better and better. Like it was crazy. Like him as a performer, he would just kept getting better as well. I'm like, this guy fascinates me, man. He really does. It was a trip to see.
It's one of those people, like we had this show way back in the day here called Doogie Howser. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of it. A little what's his name? But little, right?
Neil Patrick Harris.
Neil Patrick Harris, of course.
And it was basically like he was just gifted, right? Like he learned everything super fast, and he like graduated college when he was like 12, and that's kind of how I felt looking at Jack and how quickly he like got so much better throughout your videos and things like that, not just his acting, but obviously with the editing and doing special effects and everything. I'm like, wow, is this guy just like a prodigy?
He's a savant. Yeah. He comes off to me like a savant. He really, really does. And he also seems like he's really like down to earth and humble too, if I had to guess.
Yeah, he is. Jack's a real lover of when there's a skill to be learned. He really likes to just dive in and try and figure out how it's done and what to do. He loves like learning new skills, basically. So and he puts the time in and the effort in to really push himself as well. So he's always like learning new stuff. So he was a great creative partner in that respect. But you touched on the acting there, and that was actually something that we both hated having to act in those things. Hated it. It's horrible. Like that's still the worst, cringiest part of it all for me right now. But we didn't have anything else. If we had a bunch of acting friends who would be in these short films and stuff like that. We totally would have used them, but yeah, it's funny that we sort of were forced to learn a bit how to act, but we were always ourselves. It was always a sort of hyper version of me and a hyper version of Jack, and we'd play very similar characters, so it wasn't too much of a stretch. But anytime we had to like cry or be in pain or anything, that always took 2 or 3 times the length it should have done to film. Always trickier, but we got there in the end.
Yeah, speaking of partners, you had a project you worked on with Mumbo, the deal.
Two, in fact, the deal and the steal.
The deal and the steal. Yeah, I forgot about that one as well. Tell me how that all came about. Because obviously Mumbo is big into filming and directing and things like that. So somehow you were able to just form a partnership with him to work on a project or two together.
Exactly. I just reached out to him and said, "Hey, Mumbo, I see you do filmmaking stuff, and I also do filmmaking stuff. And would you like to do a joint thing?" And he was really up for it straight away. And that was the deal. That was the first one we did. And we all had so much fun. Like just being on a sort of a film set. It wasn't really that professional, but it's always so much fun. It's such a good atmosphere, and because we all enjoy making films, we're all just having like the best time ever. It's just fantastic, and the outtakes are always brilliant, and the bits that aren't even on camera, we're all just sort of hyper basically because we're all having so much fun. So yeah, that was the same when we got with Mumbo as well. It was a really easy thing to add him to the partnership. He was fully focused on all the camera work and the directing and stuff like that. We would kind of chip in a bit too with the directing, but then we were the sort of writing it and acting in it, and then Jack was also editing it afterwards. So it was a very back and forth between like what we would do, and then Mumbo would work with that, and then we would then feed back into it, and it was the perfect partnership really. And that's why we wanted to do a second one with the Steel as well, which was possibly our most sort of ambitious thing we ever did. Purely because we had that extra person to be able to try and shoot to the next level. So yeah, there's a lot of with the Steel that I'm really proud of in terms of the production value and stuff. But it's still some of the things that, like we said, the Paddy with the stuntman and that's still some of my favorite stuff. Just the silly, quick, easy stuff that was just like we were just messing around together. It's still some of the best things.
If I remember right. I don't know if it was in your behind the scenes video that you did of making the deal. I think it was. Were you guys like in the parking garage at like 4 a.m. or something?
I was wondering that myself. It's like all empty.
Yeah. Like how did you manage to even get like that set going? I for some reason I remember somebody saying something about like how it was like super crazy hours you had to stay up till in order to get like an empty parking garage to work in.
So that first one, the deal, we literally, I think we got to the car park at around 6 or 7 p.m. It was a 24/7 parking garage, multi-story car park is what we call it. And yeah, Mumbo scouted the location out. It was actually nearer him than it was us. So we just trusted him with that. And yeah, we got there, we set up, we started going. We got interrupted a lot by people. We didn't really have a permit or anything. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe I'm incriminating myself here. I don't know. Blame Mumbo. But yeah, no, it was fine. So we weren't making a nuisance of ourselves. Of course, we were keeping very much to ourselves and filming ourselves and things. But there was like a group of car fanatics, young lads, young boys that were coming up there and almost having like an impromptu rave in this car park, and we kind of had to ask them very politely, please can we continue making our film, please, thank you. And luckily they were kind of a bit like interested in it, but eventually they were like, yeah, cool, we're gonna go now and leave you to it. But yeah, we left the car park I think at about 6 a.m. I think it took all night of shooting, and then I still had a 3.5 hour drive home after that as well. So we were just up all night, basically. That was an all-nighter. And the Steel, the next one that we did about a year later, that was a completely different story. That was filmed in Mumbo's home, in his house. So slightly easier. We didn't have as many people barging in. But that took, I think that we scheduled it for 3 whole days of shooting. And I think we ended up having to do a bonus 4th one as well, which we were very surprised about. But yeah, again, that was a whole different vibe. But again, we were just trusting Mumbo. That was all Mumbo's sort of part to play in all of this, was getting the location and everything going. And yeah, I think it all worked out great in the end.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Like it's a really good idea also from like, just a YouTube's perspective to find somebody to collaborate with, because I think he did actually like post the video on his channel as well, right? Like his second channel.
Yeah, he has the full final films,
right? And
we have the behind the scenes of those films kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an interesting way of doing it, but I felt like he was maybe I'm wrong, but he seemed to want to make films but didn't have anything to film, and was trying to come up with things to film. And we had something that we really wanted to film, but we didn't have the means of actually filming it. So
it
worked out
perfect marriage.
Worked out brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. And if anything, even though the videos that you made were on Mumbo's second channel, I mean, it's still more exposure, right? Which is a big part of the YouTube game. Is trying to figure out how to get that exposure.
Both of them got like 500,000 views or something on his channel over there. Like, it was crazy for
something
us.
to be proud of right there, right?
Yeah. That's cool. So that was, I think, on behalf of anybody who's ever watched any of those videos, I'm aware of how hard it is, and hopefully something changes in the future that makes it far more doable for you guys to get back to him, because you obviously have a knack and you create a very good product. So we'll leave it at that. But you guys also started this podcast called A World Without, where you quite literally, I mean, what an idea. Like, every installment is about what would the world be like without X, and you fill in X for each one. And you guys, you had to hang that up for a little bit there, but you're coming back. You're bringing it back. Tell us about all of that.
Yeah, season 2. We've got 1 episode out at the moment. I think possibly a second one will have come out by the time this podcast comes out. But it's so much easier for us to make. We're not as good as this podcast. We haven't got the video or anything. We're just audio. So yeah, we're able to kind of make them a lot easier. And honestly, it's the kind of conversation Jack and I have just on our own anyway. If we're driving somewhere, if we're going to the cinema, we'll be having that exact kind of conversation of like, what would a world without fruit be like? And we'll just have this ridiculous sort of ad-libbed conversation almost, where we really feed into each other's the silly side of things. Like, this isn't a serious podcast in the slightest. We are fully focused on the most ridiculous parts of a world without these things. The serious side of it, that most of the time we begin the podcast in, well, we'd all be dead. We'd all die, because it's like essential to have. But then we're like, okay, but then what would, and we just think of like the wackiest thing. So a world without fruit, for instance. We might talk about how Apple now, the big company Apple, like they can't be called that anymore. They need a new name, and we'll talk through about what they could be called and stuff. It's just a real thought experiment. If you've ever had a chat with your friends, or like I'm sure you two have talked about it before, things like, would you rather have feet for hands or hands for feet?
Yeah.
That kind of silly, totally hypothetical nonsense conversation. It's basically that, but boiled down into a podcast. And it's just the perfect way for Jack and I to share and let people in on some of just the funniest stuff Jack and I have ever done. Was not on our YouTube channel, was not on our podcast. It's just us chatting. Like, we have such a laugh. So we wanted to try and bring some of that for other people to join us and enjoy as well. And that's what A World Without became.
So are you guys in the same room when you do it?
No, we began that way, but it just turned out that it was a lot easier to do it remotely. We were doing a lot of them during COVID as well. We had to move away from doing it in person when COVID first kicked in. And we just was like, wow, this is way easier now. We can have our own different audio tracks a lot easier without the bleed from the different microphones and things. And it just worked out. So that's how we do it every time now.
So has there been any discussion of bringing video into, and I ask because like we've talked a little bit about this as well. When him and I were tossing around the idea of doing a podcast, I was thinking audio only. And when we were going back and forth, because I just, my brain says podcast and it thinks audio only for some reason. And it was he said, no, I want to do video. And I was like, okay, that's not twice as hard. That's 1,000 times harder. But it's absolutely it was the right choice. You guys you dance with that idea at all to maybe introduce video?
Definitely wanted to, yeah, but like you say, it isn't just just put a camera on and it's all good. Like if you're gonna do it, you want it to look nice. You've got like a lovely like setup there now, like it actually looks good. Whereas Jack and I don't really have that. We would almost need a room that we could make a set out of, pretty much. We just didn't have that. As well as, I guess, like this podcast is much more about you guys. It's about the guest. It's about people. So it's nice to see our faces as we're talking about things. Whereas A World Without is so kind of wacky and out there anyway, and we're talking about the most bizarre things. You don't need to see our face. I always say like I've got the voice I've got a face for radio and an intellect for podcasts or something like that. So yeah, we could just talk about the craziest things ever, and you don't need to see our faces while you're enjoying that. You just can listen and enjoy it that way.
So how many podcasts did you record in season 1?
Season 1, I think it's got 21 episodes in, and they're range between 20 minutes and an hour long. They're quite varied. And then we had a massive hiatus, 2-3 years almost, and we just decided, hey, look, we can do the podcast. We don't need to spend 40-50 hours a week making these videos. We can just spend like a couple of hours to do them, and we still get to have all that the same feeling, the same fun that we would have when we were making the videos. So yeah, we've already recorded the first 4 episodes of season 2 now. So we've tried to get ourselves nice and ahead. So they'll be coming out. They're coming out every 2 weeks. A new episode's coming out, but they're very, very good. I must say, the new season, we're straight back into it. Like a duck to water. We're back in the flow. And I love it. It's honestly one of my favorite times, one of my favorite things, even with the Zedaph Minecraft stuff. And the filming, like the podcast is some of my favorite stuff because it is just me and Jack's brains boiled down to this conversation. And yeah, I love it.
I love the idea of A World Without because there's so many different interesting and funny angles that you can go with. I mean, it must, and to think that, and it's a bottomless well. Like there's just there's so many different angles that you can go with. And when you tell me like that you enjoy making them, I get it. And we've done a lot of podcasts. This is actually number 51 right now. Yeah. So that we're on episode 51, right? And that's a lot. And I can say I've enjoyed the whole journey. However, in that process of that, there's been many episodes that they were kind of hard to do. Yeah. Not that there's we're not cutting or anything like that, but they're kind of intense. They're like there's some research involved. They're kind of hard to do, but the ones that are the most fun is when it really is like we did one like how we called How Was Your Week? Remember that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's all it was. Literally just talked about what we did last week because we both had like kind of crazy weeks, I think.
Exactly.
And so we're just like, what if we just talked about how crazy our week was that we just went through because it was nuts. And that was like one of the most fun ones to record. We just did one like what's next for Imp And Skizz. And funny enough, in that we talked a lot about doing kind of the silly stuff that you and Jack were doing in your videos, like the learning to be stuntmen and stuff. Is like those were kind of the things that you and I tossed around, like that would be fun to do, and maybe we were somewhat inspired, but also it is kind of scary to like think about the production that goes behind that. Whereas like you said, the podcast, you can just hit, you get together on a voice call and you hit record it and boom, it's like an hour later, there you go. Other than editing and stuff, which I know Jack puts a lot of effort into, but it's more sustainable. It's something you can fit in your daily life, and it's something you can kind of stick to. Whereas like you said, doing the cameras and the lighting and stuff, it does become more work for us. Like hours go into setting up and things like that. And so we really have to, like, we had to stop doing it weekly. Like we record 2 in one day now because just the setup process alone was hours because,
I can imagine
everything we have to do. So, but yeah, that's good that you found something sustainable so that you and Jack can continue to make content, because it is, I think, a world without Chris and Jack would be sad.
Yes. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree. And it's probably worth noting. A lot of people are probably right now thinking, oh, I'll cruise over to Spotify or Buzzsprout and I'll find this. And I'm sure you can, but you guys release these on your YouTube channel, the very one we were talking about. And I know it's a still frame and every one is a different title which is good. But it's a still frame, but you can also listen to them there as well. You're on Buzzsprout and Spotify and Apple.
I don't think you
that?
use Buzzsprout. Him and I actually had a conversation because like there are different podcast distributing platforms.
Oh, okay.
And what basically happens is you pick one of these platforms and they create like what's called an RSS feed, and it just kind of like shouts it out to all the things like Apple and Google and Spotify and that kind of like picks it up from this RSS feed. We use one currently called Buzzsprout, and I think you guys have a different one that you use, but same kind of concept.
Okay,
but yeah, like so you guys are pretty much on all like the big podcast platforms as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you go on any of the big ones, you search A World Without in the podcast section, and yeah, you should find us. You can see I always point that way. It's that way.
Yeah.
You can see the logo right there. We got the whole it's all branded the same and everything, so you should find it. But yeah, definitely, if you've never given it a listen, I'd highly recommend you go and check an episode or two out because they're just good simple fun.
Very good.
Yeah.
And
it was easy to find. Like I just muted my Alexa device that's right here so she wouldn't go off. Sorry, anybody listening if I just set yours off. But like literally I was in here and just said, Alexa, play the A World Without podcast on Spotify, and boom. Next thing I know, your voice is you and Jack are playing over the speaker. And then Skizz came in and heard your voice, and he's like, "Whoa, he's here already!"
Yeah,
I was like,
I did.
No, just listening to the podcast.
Yeah. So we have an idea for you. We have just a topic. It came up in our pre-show, right? Because I don't know if we always do our pre-show before we record with our Glimpse folk, and A World Without Locks.
Without locks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't lock your house. You can't lock your car. You can't lock your money in a safe.
That might be
a
topic we have written on we've got a massive list of I don't know, 50, 60 topics, many of which are probably never going to happen because they're just there's not enough meat to them. But I think it might be A World Without Keys that we have written down actually.
Oh, okay.
Which,
really close.
Same kind of thing. But yeah, that's not a bad one. It's interesting to think of that of what the potentials could be. So yeah, you may well be hearing that at some point soon.
What's the craziest one you've done to even without spoiling stuff that hasn't come out yet, like in season 1 maybe? What was like the craziest without you guys have done, where even like in the middle of it you're like, where'd we come up with this? This is the wackiest, stupidest thing we've ever talked about.
Yeah, I mean, some topics are really just you don't even know how to begin thinking about a world without it. Like I'll give you a little teaser. We've got one coming up soon that's going to be A World Without Gravity, and just to try and wrap your head around a world where you don't have gravity and everything it affects is just mind-boggling. So like I say, we tend to try and just take a step back from that, not think about that too much, and just kind of zone in on the smaller little details of things that would be funnier to talk about perhaps. But it's tricky. It's tricky sometimes.
It just sounds like too much fun. You know what I mean? Because like you and I, we like to have like crazy conversations every once in a while. And just like you said, Chris, like the funniest moments that between us, there's no cameras. It's
well, it's kind of how this podcast got started, was because we found that happening a lot. And we said, well, what if we just recorded ourselves having conversations together, or even like when we're like streaming together and we'd be in Minecraft doing like the most grindiest thing ever. And we're just like we're having these weird conversations with each other because we know we can't like give dead air, there's viewers and stuff. And so we'd have like these weird conversations, and we're like, man, that would like, people are just listening to us talk. They don't care about us grinding on a cobblestone generator or whatever the heck we're doing. Right. And so we realized like, oh, maybe there's something here. And that kind of is like what led us to this podcast.
Yeah.
And then even then we were like setting up for the podcast, and we're having conversations while we're dialing in the cameras and the lighting and stuff. And we're like, even these conversations we're having before we're hitting record on the podcast, I think people would be interested in. So then we started a pre-podcast private Glimpse stream for our Glimpse supporters. And so they get to watch us just like have conversations with each other while we're focusing the cameras and stuff. So like little by little, we're just like Truman Show.
Yeah,
like letting
exactly,
people
yeah.
into every aspect of our lives, basically.
Yep.
We're gonna get the 24/7 Imp and Skizz like live house kind of thing soon.
It'd
Yeah.
be Big Brother, but it's just the two of them.
Oh,
that
gosh.
would not do well.
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure we'll be canceled within a day. Or
Yeah.
two.
Do you guys ever find yourselves kind of wanting to talk about something and then going, oh no, we'll keep that. Shush, we'll
Yeah.
keep it for the podcast.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
He makes a joke about it. How I always tell him, I'm like, shut up, save it. You know what I
Save it.
mean? Like, save
Yeah.
that for the podcast.
It's like he thinks we're gonna run out of like funny or something. Like if we use it all up, all the good material happened before we hit record, so now there's none left.
You can't.
Right.
You got it. It's like drops of fruit in an orange. You can only squeeze so much out, man. We gotta. But no, that's the answer is a resounding yes.
Yeah.
I'm always saying no. Shut up. Save that for the podcast. Like save it. You know. So we do a lot of that. And like you guys, we also have a big laundry list that we're always adding to. You know.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the I don't know how it works for you guys, but typically when we will see that list grow when one of us is on some sort of excursion, right?
Yeah.
When one of us has to like goes on a vacation or I travel to the East for the, softball, that's when my mind is freeing up or I'm exposed to new things and it just invigorates these ideas. And I'm like, oh yes, we got to do one on this. And we touch on a lot of different stuff and it's,
Yeah, that's been the hardest part about this podcast, I think, is that like most people will look at a podcast and they'll be searching for something specific,
Yes.
right? Like, oh, I want to create a healthier lifestyle when it comes to dieting or exercising, or I want to learn how to become a better parent. I want to learn how to become a better partner to my spouse. Or whatever. They're looking for specific things when it comes to podcasts, or maybe just true crime or whatever, right? There's tons of stuff out there. And the same with you and Jack. You have this concept, a world without, where what Skizz and I are doing is very just like whatever. And it was kind of like the idea to leave it open. And we kind of thought, well, over time, if we start to lean a certain way, maybe we'll go that way. But we never really wanted to like paint ourselves in the corner as like a certain thing. Like we're only going to talk about content creation, or we're only going to talk about parenting or whatever. And so we've been like a mixed bag. And I look at it like it's got its pros and its cons, right?
Yes,
because
absolutely.
When I tell people that I do a podcast, they say, "What's it about?" And I don't have an answer. You know what I mean?
You just
Yeah.
say,
and at that point, it makes it seem like this isn't serious. You know what I mean? To
Right.
them, because we don't have a specific niche that we're in. But at the same time, I don't think I'd want it any other way, because it allows us to just like whatever. Like you said, I mean, I was on vacation and I was thinking about, habits and because I had gotten in this habit of like constantly feeling like I had to be doing. And I got on vacation and it was hard to get out of that habit to just relax. And I was like, man, I have this habit that I need to break and I'm having a hard time breaking it. And when I get back, I'm going to have to get back into it. And so I was like, let's talk about habits. And next thing you know, we're talking about habits on our show. And then we have like, Martin on the week before, who's a content creator. It's just like we're a mixed bag, but like I said, I think it works.
it does. And our podcast is about life. I mean, that's really the best way to put it. It's just about life. But
It sounds quite cathartic as well to be able to talk about things and just, things that you wouldn't normally have a conversation about necessarily. You're able to have one and really dive deep into it as well. You're not just having a 5-minute quick chat. It's actually the topic of the entire conversation you're going to have. So yeah, that's nice.
and we end up having revelations during the podcast. Like it's like while it's happening, we're just like, you know what? I never thought of it like that. Like it's kind of, that's
We've had podcasts where I left thinking, like feeling like I had just seen a therapist. Like you're just having conversations and like I'm like, oh, I really needed to hear that. Okay. And then like my life changes afterwards. And we've had that too. I think that was the biggest surprise for us in doing this podcast, is that like some people have like been able to take some of the things that we've talked about and like make changes in their life that were like literally life changing, and they tell us about it. And at that point we were just like, okay, we got to keep doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you look at what you're doing with Jack, I mean, I can imagine that when you guys are talking about the silly things, you're getting reactions from people. You're hearing, like, I was belly laughing, hearing you guys talk about a world with no fruit or whatever. Like, what do you think is like your biggest driver in doing the podcast?
I mean, firstly, it is just being able to hang out with Jack. It's a really good opportunity to just have proper one-on-one time, doing what we do best, just having that silly conversation. But yeah, my goal is to try and make Jack laugh. That's what I'm trying to do the whole time. And I think he's trying to make me laugh too. And then that's great because then we're hopefully both creating an enjoyable thing for people to listen to. And that's the main goal of our podcast. You won't learn much from our podcast. It's not very educational because we don't know what we're talking about half the time. And you probably won't have any epiphanies either, but it's certainly a fun thought experiment to just kind of imagine this silly world, and hopefully Jack and I will have come up with a few points that are maybe a little bit as a weird tangent that you wouldn't have initially thought of. We try and have a little bit of research time where we kind of think outside the box a little bit more. That's usually when we get our most silliest things. I mean, the times we talked about, like, I don't even remember. This is the thing. I don't even remember what the episode was, but we were talking about having sharks as sniffer dogs in the airports and things like that. Oh, because they can smell really like miles away blood or something. I don't remember, but the amount of off topic we get is unfathomable, but it works. That's where the best stuff is.
Oh, you're right though. I did pick up on the fact that you guys do also a little bit of research to kind of help you through some of the conversation, like the world without sleep. Obviously, one of you looked up to see that the longest somebody's gone without sleep was 11 days and 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like having those little tidbits of information definitely help drive the conversation. And also, I mean, like, even for the listeners, it's like, oh, really? That's cool. A little tidbit I didn't know, and now I know. And so, like, sprinkling that in with the humor also, I think, is a really nice formula that you have.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. We always have to put apparently in brackets whenever we say a fact. It's always like probably, apparently, we think, but like I say, it's not. It's not like super heavily researched, but yeah, we definitely. I mean, it makes you think of questions. It is like, hey, I wonder what the longest anybody has not slept for is, and then you look it up, and you learn some weird, quirky facts. So yeah, you're right. There is an element of kind of getting that strange information as well from the podcast. So we do try and add a little bit more this season. We're trying to add a little bit more of our own personal stories about things. If we're talking about an aeroplane, we might talk about something that happened to us on an aeroplane once. I think in season 1 we really strayed away from that. We tried not to talk about ourselves at all. But this season we're kind of leaning into that a little bit more and kind of sharing some personal funny stories that are relevant to the conversation.
Yeah, that's good. It makes it relatable.
Exactly.
So now, what's Jack's proximity to you? Like, how far away is he? Does
he lives about a 2-minute walk from my house.
Same as us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? This is earlier. You didn't even know I did this. I was gonna wait until the podcast came out, but he was talking about Jack, and he was talking about, like, whenever there's a new skill set, Jack just goes all in. And you were looking at him, and as soon as he said that, and I just did this, and I just held my arm there forever.
I didn't even see it.
Yeah, and Impulse is about a 2-minute walk away from my house. I mean, this is just crazy.
Yeah, it's insane, and we both have podcasts. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, like all the similarities are there, which is awesome.
Now, Zed, how many times have you come to the States?
3 times, 3 weeks each time, so 9 weeks total.
I think you know where I'm going with this.
When was the last
10th
time?
week?
No,
wait. He came 3 times. Oh wait, no. This would be the 4th if he came again. I was gonna say, but I was gonna say 3 times, 3 years apart. Where are you at now? How long has it been? It feels like it's been a while.
It's been, I think, 4 years. I think.
Yeah, you're overdue.
Not that long, maybe longer.
You're overdue. I mean, we had so much fun. So when we get together with Zedaph, because obviously we're doing things on the content creation side of the world, the Minecrafty stuff. So it's Zedaph, Impulse, Tango, our buddy Tango, who's been on the show before, and Skizz, we're lovingly known as Zits, which I have seen comments, people asking that we change that name because it's gross. But
it's great. It's a great name.
But yeah, we have like this great chemistry when the four of us get together, and we did some things. Like we hung out at Tango's house that one time. Right? What were we doing? Like silly games where we stretched our mouths and tried to talk and stuff. Do you remember that?
Oh wow, yeah. That was something. That's for sure. I think the first one we did, the first trip, we actually all came around your house, Impulse, and we did the couch gaming session. I remember the entire afternoon we all spent kind of setting the whole thing up. I think we turned the room we were in like pretty much upside down, to try and get it all set up. But yeah, the laughter during that stream, I think it is the most I've ever laughed. Like we were playing it was like a soccer type game or something, and just if you go back and watch the VOD now, like, oh my goodness me, I've never laughed so hard. It was unbelievably funny. Just it wasn't even anything that happened. It was just the situation, and all four of us were just kind of in such a giggly mood that we just found everything funny, and we were all screaming at each other. Like it was just perfect chaos.
Bringing back some serious nostalgia down. I have to have this happen again. Like
it has to. And I remember there was when we did a gaming night at Tango's house, and this was actually the first time I had ever physically met you, right? Like it was a great day. And we were doing this game, and I remember, because my brain does these things where I feel like what I'm about to do or about to say is going to be funny, but you know what? I'm not 100% sure. And not only am I not 100% sure, I'm not 100% sure I should say this, because like even if it is funny, that may have been too much. And there was a thing we got that said like we had to like I don't really remember the game, but it was, here's the prompt, and then you give the answer, and the prompt was, what does Batman do when no one is around? And I wrote down Master Bats. And I turned it in, and I don't remember who read it, but whoever read it, like, it was one of those things where my brain's like, okay, this is a make or break, this is a smoke or choke moment. Like they might be like during the break, they might be like, Skizz, you can't take it to that level, or it might knock it out of the park. You know what? I'm swinging, and I did that, and the laughter was palpable. Like all of us just. And especially watching the three of you, like, could not stop laughing. And that was years ago, and I still have people talk about it in my chats today. It still comes up.
It was iconic, man. Yeah. It was an iconic moment.
It was so. I don't remember which one of you read it or if it worked out like that, but I remember somebody like. It took a while for it to kind of add. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when it happened, it just, so good.
Yeah, it wasn't quite a joke grenade. Like, it was a very short timer, but yeah there was that, like, there was that moment of pause where it was like, I think all of us collectively were like, did he really just say that?
But I didn't say it. It was written. That's what made it so funny. Because here's what the brain did when whoever read it. They read it as, they read the word, and they were like, he forgot an E. He was actually trying to say this, but that's not funny. That's just outright, oh, he didn't forget the E. Oh, I know what he's doing here. Like the whole thing happened real quick, you know, and then boom, it was just so funny.
Yeah, well, that's the bottom line, is we got to make it happen again.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I've been wanting to do it. Like, there's nothing really stopping us now. Like, it just, we need to find the right time, and we can do it again. Yeah, I've got a long list of ideas still from the previous trips that we never gotten around to, that I'd love to. I've still got the list now somewhere. I can find it, and there's no shortage of fun we can have. So
there you go.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Yeah, let's definitely make that happen. Zed, I got to tell you. This was, I mean, I look forward to all our podcasts. I look forward to all our guests, but I'm obvious. I have a weird partial energy to you, and so this was very, very special to me.
I'm gonna get replaced now. He's gonna be doing this virtual without me.
You've been replaced up here for years. Thanks. I just got to get him to move out.
Yeah, I know.
That's not true.
If he could get more of your time, he would, I'm sure.
Yeah, no. But it's been an absolute pleasure, man, and thank you for joining us and giving up your time and being with us. I've enjoyed every bit of it, man.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Honestly, such a fun time. Good conversation. Loved it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. KRIS and Jack, check it out.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Definitely. Like, we'll put links in the description and stuff so you guys can find all the things that we've been talking about. And
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, I know it seems like we were blowing a little bit of smoke. No smoke was blown. This is legitimately some of the best content
Yep.
I've ever seen on the internet. So please go watch
Check
his
it
stuff.
out.
Go listen to his podcast. It's amazing.
Yeah. They're going to wonder
Thanks, guys.
how did I miss this? That's what's going to
Exactly.
happen. And we're doing them a favor. They
Yep.
need to go watch Bad Cop, Worst Cop. It's so funny. I'm going to watch it after this. I got to do it.
I know. I'm like going to cue him up too.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for joining us. We will let you be on with your night. And we appreciate your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, man. Thank you.
See ya.